shiur in Sefer Maimorim Tov Reish Mem Zayin, and that's to be found in the Sefer Akloli Tov Reish Mem Vav Tov Reish Nun, and we're holding at present on Omid Pei Vav. Pei Dalet. We're holding on. We are holding on Pei Vav of the Sefer, and this is a shiur in the Maimah beginning Zocher Asher Solach Molek, and we're holding on page Pei Vav. Tonight is Sunday evening, Oyer Li Dalid Odor Toshin Ayin Beit. Alright, so we started the Veda, the whole Veda of the autumn was to be Mamshit the Moichin into the Midas. And we saw that that was through the medium of, first of all, a Soiras of Midas Sheba Moichin, the Inyan from Midas Siklis that we saw, and then through the Koyach Hadas and the Skashus and the Schabras, first of all through the Das HaMishpashet, we saw a whole Inyan, and then we saw the pool of Das, which is Mamshik the Moichin Mamish into the Midas and brings to Midas B'murgash Balev, Midas B'Skalas Fleeboy. The Ilu, we saw that the Pu'ula of Amalek is that he stands connected the Das of Kedusha, and his whole Pu'ula and his whole Klippa, that he separates the head and the Moichin from the Midas. That's the Inyan from Moloch Es Reishai Mu Orpoi, that in the Inyan from the Oiref, where it's supposed to go through into the and the Oiref indicates the Inyan of Koshias, and that the Inyan gets lost in the Meita Hagorin as he cuts it off and separates the Ashpah of the Midas, the Moichin into the Midas, and that's his whole Inyan, is to prevent any hispilus. What hispilus is the name for emotional arousal, emotional effect. He wants you to remain completely indifferent to Elikus, and that was where we brought down the Maimah Razal, Yodea es Rabbeinu Omechaven Limrid Bay, where we brought down certain by in reference to Bilam. As I lotion that the Inyan of Mochamis Amalek occurs Davki b'Yitzias Mitzrayim, and Davki when there was the Gili of all the Oasis and the Moisim of Yitzias Mitzrayim, particularly Kriyas Yamsu, whatever was Gili Lakus Mamish in the Oilam Polamata, in Oilam Tartain, and nonetheless he wasn't Nispol from that Beklau. He didn't allow that to have any effect on him, and on the contrary, he even came out to make war against Yidden and to try and, as it were, fight with the Etzem Matthias of the people who represented and carried that message of the miracles and the message of Elikus and Gili Ritzainai of the Eibishter in the world. And that's even though Yodeh Rabbeinu, even though he saw and experienced all together with all the other peoples in the world, the Gili Elikus, and nonetheless a Machavein Limroid, he wants Davka to rebel. And so we saw it wasn't like the remaining people, the Kamaishare Umas, that they were Mizbatil. The Kamaishkasu Shomu Ami Migozum Chil Ochaz Yeshve Peloshes. Chil means like Pachad and fear. That all the countries, when they heard or saw Kriyas Yamsuf, then they became bottled telekus. On the contrary, they were full of Pachad and Bill to the Yidden, to the Eibishter. Baveda, who she'afshem is bainam besichle begedulus ayin save, v'yodea shoyer laki hu ha'ike ha'chayis amachayis oilam, and he knows well and clearly that b'li elikus ein oilam, that the whole Inyan of the kiyum and the chayis of the oilam is elikus, the Eibishter. Bilodei ein shum kiyum u'matzias. Without the Eibishter, there's no preservation of living, and there's no Matthias. There's nothing melchatchila to exist. He doesn't allow that to have any effect on him and cause him to be emotionally and affected in his being by that. That he should be able to feel Avos Hashem and Pachad Hashem. On the contrary, and he does it just whatever his heart wants. He doesn't pay any attention to what he knows to be the case and what he knows to be better. In other words, he knows that that's the case, but he doesn't pay any attention to it, and he just wants to do whatever he wants. And the whole Indian is chutzpah cheek and azus ponim and gases and grobkeit, which is completely beyond reasoning and beyond seichel, because he himself knows that the truth is that the Eibishter is in effect the Emes Abba. And mitzad that you should really be Aviyira milfonov. You should really feel for him genuine Aviyira. And Avu Bikain, he davke wants to do whatever he wants in the world. Believe rots in Avaya, and that's the inyan from chutzpah gases shelamayla mitam v'dar. And when you think about it, it's a chutzpah neiroa, because dokumtais yodeya esrei boinoi implies kama inyanim. It implies that he knew all about Kriyas Yamsuf and all about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that should have had an effect on him at that time, and it didn't. And he as a people came to make war against him, and then well, that means that he, even though he realizes the clip of Malik knows what you are misbeinen, that's the Emesa Ika Kiyum and Matthias Koloinamas is only the Eibishter, yet nonetheless he wants to do what he wants to do. You can't imagine a greater chutzpah than that. If you know that a certain thing is the case, and you have to admit it, that it is. And yet nonetheless you do the opposite. You try to be mashpia into the world, that nobody should be mispoiled from the Boirei Olam Manhigo, the one that he created the world and he keeps it going the whole time. But that's an unbelievable chutzpah. You know what is the case, and how can you do exactly the opposite? You try to cause people that they shouldn't. When we say people, we mean others around you, but inside himself, he tries to cause there to be no emotional reaction and no Avos Hashem and no Pachad Hashem mitzad what he knows to be the Emet. That's just purely a for chutzpah v'gases. It's in for an azus ponim she'ein kamoya. If you know what is exactly the truth, and you want to do your way. So says the Rebbe, "Zehu asher kolcho baderach." That's what we learned in the pasuk. The Molech's effect was that he cooled you down. Kolcho baderach. Shubachin saklirus. That's the union of kaltkeit. Klirus means like, indifference and coolness. Shemakara lebli shemakara, he cools off lebli lespoil mishum dover. In order that you shouldn't be affected by any, emotionally affected or stirred by any union at all. Doesn't matter what. Avadanishte in that union von Elikut. Here's the Ika quetch. Veloisha kovanose lahano satzmei kaveh zayin midas reis mizgabrim chas v'shovim. Who b'gdei lamales taivas nachem canal. And he said it's not like the Zion midas, that their Ika kavana is just for their own purpose, their own hanoah, for their own taivas. In other words, they also know what the emes is, but they just forget it. They're not deliberately against it. They just they get so much taken up with all their taivas and all the things of this world that they just get carried away, and they lose sight, to use the expression, of the emes. They're so busy with their own hanoah. They lose they lose proportion, they lose sight. Remember, they fall into the Indian of a taiva, and that brings them to be over Rotzen Havaya. But he said, Amalek is the Indian from Davke. Not that he just forgets. He knows, counts good. And yet, nonetheless, he wants Davke to break the whole Indian of El Malchus Shemayim and bring to a case where even though you know what to be the truth, nonetheless you'll do the Haper. And so therefore it's an Inyavan principle by him. It's an Inyavan Davke, that he has a principle Davke to defy the divine. It's a very frightening concept. Although one can see and one can notice even within oneself certain traces of this. Even though we know certain things to be the case, and nonetheless, in other words, it's like the old case of the smirker. He sort of no, okay, but let's not get too serious. Let's not take it too. But in other words, a deliberate attempt to just cool things away and synthesize the whole situation, and that's based deep on a deep commitment to Davke to stop Gilui Elokus. However, it's a very delicate, but at the same time massive type of clipper. So he said the Bazar in Midas Rois, where are we? We saw it's not Lahano as Atzmai, clippers are Molek Kavanossi, Laka Hako es Hako. In the Indian of the 7 Midas Rois, so they're misgaber sometimes, they get the better of you, the Taivas. As who betela malas Tavas Nafsha, but the whole thing is just for the sake of Hanua. It's because he sees himself as gaining something from it. Beneger to his Taiva. Mashenke and Clippus Hamole, Kavanose La Kuras Hakuel. He wants to dig up the whole Inifan, Torah, Mitzvahs, and Elokus. He wants to root out the whole thing. Shall he in other words, we see that Kalilus is the worst thing. If you cool somebody down, you take away his enthusiasm and what you might call his koch and his brennan and Elokus, then you can bring him to who knows where. Through that you cool him down, you can bring him eventually to, as a word, to dismiss and kill, smile away the whole thing, and let's just have a good time. Let's not get too excited. And with that, he just dismisses everything. And Lapuyo, he dismisses the whole Yiddishkeit. So Garua Yesa Me'azayim Midasos. Well, that's a lot worse than the 7 peoples, the 7 evil character traits. The Bazayim Midasos, Yanis Burliel, Dalidesh, Maya Beginners Amoichin, Arihu Mahapik, Samidas Canal. But we saw that even somebody has fallen into the hands of the Zayim Midas Arois, but if he's misboinen and he brings a ha'orif and the moichin into his life, so then he's able to be mahapik Midas Arois back into Kedusha. Why? Because there's nothing dafki, there's no fight there against Elokus. And once the moichin magala the emes, then his Midas also follows him, and he's able to come back into the union from Kedusha. Arihu Mahapakas Amidas, Mashenke and Klippus Amalek. Arihu Yudeya Hakoil. He knows everything. He knows all the inyanim, the greatness of Hashem, and he knows all the inyanim of Kriyas Yamsu, Ka'etzabazer. Mikol Maki Makriras Benafshe Kol Kach. The inyan of the kaltkeit, the coolness within his soul is so much. Einam is spoiled because Bibchinas Avaviyira. He's not affected by that in Ofen van Avaviyira. He says, oh yes, Einach Nine. And the Rebbe brings in the famous Maimon of Samach Hay. The Rebbe Shah brings over there in the Maimon Baramalik. He said he even agrees with you that when this him, he even says, yeah, Einach Nine was a nest. There was a grace in nest and so on. But if who's going to make Nisim if not the Abishir? What's the big deal? he even admits the possibility that it was a nest, but he cools you down from the etzem gila elakus that there was, and he said, no, it's not such a special Indian. Who's going to make nesim if not Hashem? In other words, the person deep inside, when he stirred up by what was a clear gila elakus, then Amalek cools him off and says cynicism and a desire to root up everything. He says, no, I know, chanami pat. That, admitting to you, but at the same time, it's sheni, cooling you off and pulling you down completely. So therefore he says, Mikol Machem Akiros calls there Zeu Shuhu Mafrid. But that's what we learned earlier, that he separates between the Moichin Lamidas. She'eino Maniach es Eizbonen Shebamoyach Shiyum Shach Lidei Midas Shebalayim. He doesn't allow it to come down through all the Meitzah Goren and the other Inyonim. He stops it in the middle and cuts it off. He's Molach Es Reishai. וממילא כשאין המוחים העירים במידס, הרי מסגברים הזין מידס רויס, שישתקע בטייבס, ותענוגי עולם הזה. אבל if he cuts off the moichin from being mayor into the midas, then the Zion midas get the upper hand. They are misgaber, they gain the ruling hand. That he should be sunk into the infant. Ishtakea means they should sink into the union of the taivas of this world. Shishtakea b'taivas v'tanugi olam hazeh, and all the tanugim and all the pleasures of this world. In other words, first of all, Amalek doesn't just cool you off, but he leave you in a state of kedusha, but cool you off. The cooling off causes you to fall eventually into the hand of the Zion Midas. He cools you off in such a way that sof you'll fall into the hand of the Zion Midas. And Kol Mokim even though his kavanah is not for his own purpose, Mikol Mokim sof kol sof who neifel b'midas rois Rahman sof kol sof. And you do what Amalek does to you, you fall to midas rois anyway. Even though that's not what Amalek is really after. He's after just the blotting out of any concept of Lamayla Me'ateva and all those, anything to do with Elikus. He wants just to cut that off. But he knows that once you cut that off in your life and you don't have direct kesher with Elikus, and you don't believe in the Nisim, the Lamayla Me'ateva, then anyway you fall into Tyrus. And once you fall into the Tyrus, then he more or less just writes you off. Oh. So he says, Sof kol sof, hu neifel b'midas rois, Rahman and Islam. V'so shehu nikra reishis goyim. That's what we call Amalek, the beginning of the goyim. Shehu ha-reishis u'mokeh l'kol hazayin midas rois. Meaning he's the beginning and he's the mokeh of all the Zayin midas rois. What do you say is the mokeh of the Zayin midas rois? It's to say he's a Torah miucheres b'nei atzmo. Why do you say that he's racist goyim? When you connect him with the goyim, you make him like the racist. Ki alidei the pu'ula of Amalek, which ain't nachanami, he means even more than the Zayin midas. He means the infant laker sarkol b'negel kedusha. But he knows ganz good that once he's pulled you away into fakers and into doubt and into klirus, but I get to the union of nisim and kedusha, that you'll anyway fall into the midas. So therefore he's called Reishis Goyim. He's like the beginning of the collapse into the Goyim. And that's what he says. L'cheinu nikra Reishis Goyim, shua Reishis u'mokeh l'kol hazayin midas, shalidei shemafri. He separates off the cup from the midas. V'eino maniach es hamoyach laho'ir b'leiv. They say neifel b'midas rois Rahman. Anyway, the person is going to fall into the midas rois b'lavach. It's an interesting touch. Reishis Goyim means that he's the beginning of all the Goyim, even though he's a different koyach of klippa than what the Goyim are. He's a koyach hatavki, l'mayla mi lo hanosehu, and the infant das to liumazer, Rahman and Islam. of Day that you get involved with him and you get caught up in the careers. So then you lose your kesher with the moich and you get your head severed. There's any way where you're going to go. You just fall into the Zion Midas. Right, so therefore he's the ratios of all the Zion Midas, even though he's not really shy to them in detail. So, maybe that whole thing that he causes yourself to fall into the hands of the Goyim, that's maybe what the kavanah of Rashi was, because we saw that Rashi slightly alters the emphasis in the sentence. Asher kocha, what does that mean? Shikra oischa bifnei acherim, that he cooled you off in front of the others with the whole moisture of the ambatia rasacha, the boiling pot, that everybody was scared to go near it. And he jumped in, as even though he got scolded, but he came out and he showed that it's not so terrible. That's what he did. He cooled you off as regards the Goyim, and therefore they lost their whole spilers for Yidden, like it was prior to his Milchama. So he says that through that he'll lead you to fall into the government of the Zion they were all scared of you, all the Goyim. Amalek came along, and he cooled you off in front of the Goyim. Behind the canal, Dalidei Klippus Amalek, Yechelim Achachak, Lishloit, Azayin Umas. But after Amalek, anyway, the Zion Umas can rule over you. Lishloit means they can take you over, they can rule you over the Zion Midas. So he said that's what Rashi meant, that he cooled you off in the eyes of Acherim. In other words, the Acherim means the Zion Midas rise, the Zion Umas that they kept away from you, meaning that they would have maybe let you go ahead with your Veda to bring about Midas David. Or once they saw that Amalek cooled everything off and made it appear not so terrible, then they come back more confidently than what they were before, and eventually they can put it down into Tigris. Because you've anyway gone after Amalek, and you treat the whole thing a bit sort of hechitesi, and therefore the Midas can take over. The Zion Midas race, or they can rule over. And therefore Rashi is very medactic to be mafarish the word korcha, in the sense that he was makara you in front of others, others who were scared of you. He shows that it's not so terrible, which means that after he cools you off from Melikus, he brings back the government of the Zion Midas. This is what Amalek did to you when you were coming out of, you were still in the way, and you were coming out of Mitzrayim. So he said, the Mitzrayim hu b'chinas meitzar mi. Let's put down the Sifrei Kabbalah. The Mitzrayim is meitzar mi. That's the word Mitzrayim. It's two syllables, meitzar, and Yud Mem is me. So it's put down in Chassidus that me is the in from Bina. Mem Yud is Chamishim. And this Chamishim Shari Bina, the word me is indicative of the Pneumius of Bina. Meitzar me is that he puts the whole Bina in a meitzar. Like how he locks it up in a tight place. So it means that your Bina can't affect it, doesn't get through to you. And that's even a Mitzrayim in Ruchnias. Binyan Yetzias Mitzrayim. How do you get out of that Meitzar mi? Who shall bonus the Sa'u More Meinechem? That there's a bonus to lit up you to the heights, Morim to the heights. Einechem, Bora'u, Bora Ele, and you should see who created these, meaning all the heavenly bodies and all the great creations, and from studying them you'll be able to come to the conclusion who created them. And that's a pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Su mi orim einechem uru'u mi bora eila, and you'll see who created these. In other words, you'll come to understand. Well, that's his bonus that you should be using. Yeah, Yum Shach בהרגושה בלב, עד שיפועל בחינס האוויר. That's your tzias mitzrayim. That when you use that as bonus to come to through das, to come to hargosha b'lei, you feel it in the heart. Ad sheyifuel b'chinas avaviyir, until you will bring about not only just a feeling in the heart, but also avaviyira. Yeah, that's the way how it should be. Yesum orei menachem bo amolei paderech. When you were still in that way of Yitzias Mitzrayim, when you're getting out of that whole in through that his bonus that we said, and he comes, Baderech Yitzias Kilu Ha'oros HaMoichin Lalev, and what's happening is Yitzias Mitzrayim, there's an appearance of the Ha'oros HaMoichin coming into the heart. That's sort of going out of Egypt. Mafrid, and he all of a sudden comes and interferes in that derech when you're going out of Mitzrayim. Through that is bonus, and he's mafrid shaloy spoil liboy, and he interrupts that nothing should get through, that you should feel a genuine emotional effect in your heart is pilot believe. Now we said before, well, how does he do that through the infant? But basically, what emes shaldova is chutzpah, vegasus, and coarseness and chutzpah shalamayla amvadas, which are beyond any reasoning. Because if you know that everything's the case, and if you know that in kedusha, that's the emes and the immediate chayas of all the elements is that, and through morim elchim, you know what the heavenly bodies are and everything. Yet nonetheless, you want to go dafke neged. Well, that's the infant amalek. Therefore, it's a very terrible clipper because he knows everything, but he doesn't want it to get through into the heart. Well, that's the chutzpah and grobkeit. And since he cuts off the passage of the moichin into the midas, and he cuts off the head in that way, that causes the man to cool off. We've been referenced to Torah mitzvahs. So it could be that he continues doing Torah mitzvahs, but he does it, without chayas and without brand, he does mehechitesi. Bepirish ashakorcha baderech, ahu derech haTorah mitzvahs. It means in the pasuk, in Pashtus, the derech of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Over here, we could be mafarish, and he brings it in the name of other places that the derech he's talking about in Pnimis Ein Ashakorcha baderech is the derech of Torah mitzvahs b'klal. Even kiyum haTorah v'hamitzvahs with a chayas and with a av over here. That's the emes avodah. That's the emes kavona of the Eibishter in giving us Torah mitzvahs. But what he does is cools you down. That you'll do it also in the Indian. And that's what he cools you off in the way. What is the way? The way of Torah mitzvah. In Lamed Dalet. But over there, the Rebbe Marash is masber dem pshat that Iker Kriris is in Torah mitzvahs. And Iker Derech, that the pasuk means there, is the Derech of Torah mitzvah. But the previous pshat is all emes. The Derech means the going out of Mitzrayim. So ultimately, the emes going out of Mitzrayim is through the Yizboninus and through bringing the Yizboninus down into the heart. Ula Zeis. And due to that, due to the fact that Be'ike, it's a form of chutzpah, vegasus haruach, negedi, what knows itself to be the truth. Where are we? Ula Zeis. Acharisei adei eved. And due to that fact, due to all these faults that we find in Amalek, therefore his end and his finality is ultimate destruction. Acharisei, his end is dafke adei oived, to be lost forever. Pirush shetzrichim lishboireisei. You can't do anything but break him. You have to break him, as it were, into pieces completely and shatter his effect. Otherwise, he will get you and he'll cool you off. Shetzrichim lishboireisei alidei atshuva me'unke deliba. Oh, so here the Rebbe says, how are you going to How you gonna beat him? How you gonna beat that Kurus, break that kilo, that massive clip of Amalek? So he said that through the union of tshuva me'umka deliba. It's the Hina Eksiv. It's written Hina ze oimed acha kosleino. Mashgiach min ha'chalenes meitzitz min ha'chalachim. So that pasuk in Shir Hashirim means that the Eibishter Kaviochel is standing on the other side of the wall and he's peeping through Mashgiach min ha'chalen, he's looking through the windows. And meitzitz, he's taking a quick glimpse through the splits, through the, how they call it, the open parts in the wall, the splits. Yeah. So he says, Sheyesh, Beis Pinas Koisel. It's well known that two types of wall. Al Pitera. Achas Koisel de Kedusha. There's a wall also in Kedusha. Kamashkosu Bechizkiyahu. It's written by Chizkiyahu HaMelech, that when he prayed, he was very ill, and when he prayed to the Eibishter, it's written by Yasev Chizkiyahu Ponav El Akir, that he turned to the wall. He said, "V'hu inyan yichud havaya ve'adne." He said that it's one on the inyan by Yasev, that Chizkiyahu literally turned round, and he came round, means he turned away from the world. He turned away from all the pure separation and the essence of the world. But Yasev Ponov, his face, he put it to the Kiyah. Shehu Inyud Avaya Adni. It's the Yichud of the Shem Avaya and the Shem Adni. That's the Inyan of Kiyah. What Kiyah represents, like a thing where it's built up out of stones and out of that's like the Inyan of Oasis. It's killed that the Kiyah has got a mila, a wall. It's got a mila that unites all the letters and all the Asias together. What did he mean by turning to the Kiyah Davke? With that he was miyached the Shem Avaya and the Shem Adne. Now that means, that's like we say the famous prayer, the Shem Yichud Kuchi Burichu Liyachta Shem Yudke Bevovke B'Shem Kol Yitzhar. So Yudke is the union from Makiv, Sefer Kolam, and Vovke is the union from Mamalik Kolam. So the same thing with the two names. Shem Havaya is indicative of Etzem Elokus. That's indicative of the Eibishter, he is Lamayla Mi'olam. Adne is the union from Malchus. That's the union which Davki Mashpia into Olam. So the whole union of Kabbalah is to be Miyachad Vaya V'Adne. You have to be Miyachad. The Shem Havaya, how he is Sefer. Lamayla Mi'olam is with Adne, what is the union from Mamala, the union from the oil which comes down, but derech Tzimtzum and Pinimis into each nivra, but derech Mamalik. Well, that's the union from Adne. Therefore, the whole union from the Kiyah, the whole union of turning to the Kiyah, well, that was this union of uniting and being mamshik the Shem Havaya into the Shem Adne. Well, that's the immediate union of Tefillah, as that is brought in many places. But in Tefillah we also do the same thing. We're miyachid and we're mamshik the union of Tzeiva into the union of Mamal. V'yesh koisel deliver. That's the koisel de Kedusha. That the Kiyah and the koisel of Kedusha is the union of Yichud Havaya V'Adne. V'yesh koisel deliyumah. That there's Rahman and Atlana also a wall in the Tzaddik Klippos. Shehu koisel d'Amalek. What he said, that's the wall that Amalek built. In other words, he tries to build a wall between your Mech and your Lev. He tries to block everything off. So that's a pasuk in Yechezkel Novi, where the Eibishter said he should take a big iron pot or a big iron like pan, and he should place it as like a blockage between me, meaning the Eibishter, how he's talking to Yechezkel, and the city of Yerushalayim, like a blockage between me and so Omer Azal, and the Gemara says in Sechta Brachos on that pasuk. Omer Rabbi Elazar, several statements in the name of Rabbi Elazar, And he says on that pasuk, Mishu Chora Beis Hamikdash Choimus Barzel Mafsekes Bein Yisrael Le'avim Shebesha Mayim. He said from the time of the destruction, the Churban, at the Beis Hamikdash, there's an iron wall, a Choimus Barzel, interrupts between Yidden and the Eivishter. And he said, Barzel begematria Amalek. That's one of the word Amalek is the same gematria as the word Barzel. So what does it mean? Akish or Barzel is interrupting in the Zman Agolas. So he said, Shewinyan Klippasa, Amalek Sha'isa Mechitza Shel Barzel. He makes like a blockage of stone. Or Mafrid, stone, I'm sorry, of iron, iron. Sha'isa Mechitza Shel Barzel. Barzel is iron. Or Mafrid Bein Amochin Lamidas. So he blocks off a very powerful, unyielding sort of a blockage, which is called like an iron wall. It blocks the midas off from being makabel be'emes mea kedusha mea kodesh baruch hu derech the moichin. It blocks them off. He makes a wall. Tzrichim lishba es hakoisol. You have to break that koisol. You can't elevate. You can't be ma'aleh to the Barzel. Barzel is how they call it a thing neged kedusha. You can't be ma'aleh. And that's what we find that in the Beis Hamikdash they never used any Barzel. They never cut any swords or anything like that in the actual building of the Beis Hamikdash per se. The last spot down at called Barzel Loi Nishma Babayis Behi Bonosai. When they built, there was never any sound of any metal cutting. And the farm, and he said, "V'lochein Loi Nimtza Barzel b'Meleches HaMishkan." The Kolmeni Matechois Oyev HaMishkan. In the Mishkan, in the desert, there were different types of metal that there were in the Mishkan. Zav, Chesava, Choises. There was gold, and silver and bronze. Mashenkin Barzel, we don't find Barzel. There wasn't. It can't elevate itself. The breaking and the shattering of it, that's its correction. Zehu meitit min acharachim. The Kaviochel, the Avis is looking through the cracks. Shoisim chalenes v'charochim, breaks and cracks and like splittings in the koisel. You break the koisel. V'alidei atshuva mi'umka deliba. She'en lechadova ein med b'fnei atshuva. That nothing stands in the way of tshuva. So here we see that in order to break the clip of Amalek, in order to break that blockage between the heart and the moichin and the leiv, and what he calls a machitza shel Barzel, but it doesn't have any aliyah, and therefore you have to just smash it and break it completely. All that tends to indicate that we have to have a very drastic power to break that wall. It's not a wall of stones. If you give it a hit with a sledgehammer, it'll start moving in a bit, and you might even knock part of it down. But Barzel is a very unyielding thing, like we see in several places. Rashi brings that Barzel is mekatzer libe shel adam, and therefore it shouldn't be used in the Beis Hamikdash and everything. At the end of Pash Yisrael, right near the end of Pash Yisrael, Rashi believes. And also there's an interesting din that the Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch, in Hilchos Brachos. That the Alter Rebbe brings that you shouldn't pick up something with a knife and make a blessing on it and eat it. You shouldn't stick a knife into something and then eat it. As the Alter Rebbe was, because the Barzel, he brings it. Barzel is mekatzer libe shel adam, v'hu koiche shel ha'isov, and the bracha is the chayim from kedusha. And all I do is to bring the food into kedusha. But if it's stuck with a piece of Barzel, you can't bring it into kedusha. They bring the Alter Rebbe. Very interesting. You should make note that never pick up food on a knife and make a brocha neither. They bring the altar over. He said, well, we see that the Basel is in a hyper kedusha. And also once by a Farbrengen, the Rebbe said that Basel is the four imois, so the four mothers of the Jewish people, but they're the servant ones before the main imois. That Basel is Bilho Rochel, and then Zilpa Leah. In other words, Bilho was the servant girl of Rochel, and Zilpa, she was the servant girl of Leah. So he said the Basel is where you put the servants before their master. In other words, you put the lowest Indian in Kedusha before the highest in Kedusha. And if you do that, you're going back to front. You're putting the toffel. Now, let's go Basel. That leads to Basel. That leads to an iron machitza. And remember, that's a molek. He puts like a machitza of Basel. He doesn't let any through. He doesn't want anything to get through. He doesn't want any kedusha to penetrate. And eventually, he wants to just cool you off altogether and drop you away in the middle and just write you off. You're right off for history. That's what he wants to achieve. There was the Rebbe. You have to break the machitza. You have to break this wall. So he said, how do you do it? He said, "Mitzhuva me'unka deliver." Because tshuva is also a drastic thing. Tshuva is like, a very powerful, because when you do tshuva, you change your whole mitzvah. You go from one extreme to the other, and that creates a tremendous energy in Kedusha. But that energy can blow a molek and split him, because you become so determined and so bound up in the Indian Kedusha that literally sweep everything in front of it, even the Indian of Basel. And so what we say, that genuine tshuva is like a tremendous jump. That's what's called the Dalig Shua, the jump over the wall, and others said that. Once I heard a whole secret from the Rebbe about it. Tshuva is like a breaking a record. It's like a jump where you just go beyond all the. So something which is the drastic of Kedusha, and going beyond all limitation, changing the whole material, so that can break and shatter the wall of a molek. That can finish him all. And that's what he says, that the Eitzah to a molek is true. Now he's going to bring another Eitzah, from Limud HaTov. That's a very interesting Eitzah. But God willing, we'll learn about that on Tuesday.